The question is, what will movies be like in the future with the window? And then what are movies going to be like interactive, so inside the world? But the other big thing they got wrong, if this character is indeed Gandalf, is Gandalf came around the year 1000 of the Third Age. The show takes place at the end of the Second Age. So if it is at the very end of the Second Age that this is indeed Gandalf showing up, then you're about 1,000 years off.
The only people who are interested in this history lesson are the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans.
Listen.
And the hardcore fans hate this show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wacky, Wonderful, Wise Works podcast. All you guys, gals, geeks, and goofballs, you got the brothers here today. And what a treat.
The brothers.
What a treat.
Why did I want to say the brothers trust? What is that from?
The brothers trust? Like a
financial thing.
A financial thing?
The brothers trust. I don't know. I've heard that from somewhere. I was about to say the brothers trust.
So I got a chance to do something I haven't done in a while.
Okay, breeze past it.
All right. I don't give a crap about the brothers trust.
I don't even know what that is.
I got to play
What'd you do?
Cards with some boys.
You know, I also had some time to play some cards.
No. I'm telling you about my experience, and you're like, you know what? Screw your experience. Mine's pretty good. Let me tell mine.
Okay, I will reiterate with my story once you tell me yours.
Good friends from growing up. Isaac, Josh, and Joe Gordon.
Yeah, they all came by.
We're all down here.
Maybe I shouldn't say this on a public podcast, but
what?
Never mind. We'll talk about this later.
Whatever.
Not a podcast conversation.
If you feel like all I'm saying is they came over. Well, first we went to a nice lounge and we hung out and talked one night, and then the next night they came over and we had dinner together, and they stayed. They stayed in the evening, and I got a chance to play some card games with them, and that was fun. I haven't played card games with the Gordon folks in a minute.
Yeah,
I feel like all of last year. I feel like I need some more time. They're just a quick visit. I need some more time to feel like rejuvenated, but it was a good start to it. I think now that Josh is back in the area.
Josh just graduated from some kind of military school.
It was like a military training period for a few months. And then, so he's back in the area. It's going to be good to get to see him more often. But yeah, I think it's always good to have friends, friends from your past to spend time with and to enjoy your time. Now, what we played was hearts. And what happened was Joe kept winning. And then at the very end, if you know the game of hearts, there's a thing, it's like run the table. I don't know what the term is. I could never remember the term. I kept calling it every name in the book except the right one. But it's basically like if you don't want points, but if you get all the points and no one else gets a single point, then that means everyone else gets all the points except you, right? So if you're already losing and no one else has points, it's better to try to keep losing and get all the points, so then ultimately you're the ultimate winner. It's called hearts. So he did that the last round, and he just whooped our tail by collecting all the points. And then at the end he leans back and he's like, I didn't tell you boys this, but back in my old card playing gambling days, I won a trophy for hearts. He won a trophy playing that game, and he was the one that picked it. So he went into it knowing he was going to win. What was your card experience?
So, some guys at my local establishment where you gathered to see the Lord.
Okay.
At my church.
Okay. That was going
some
on
guys at church.
All right.
They invited me over. They're like, we're going to come over, play some cards. And at first I was like, this doesn't sound that fun to me.
Playing cards is
I've got a lot of work. I got a lot of work to do, and because it's establishment with guys that are, from the local establishment.
Yep.
They I don't know why I'm saying it like that. I just thought it'd be funny.
Local establishment.
There's not going to be
church.
they're not going to be any beverages. And so it's not going to be like cards with beverages type thing.
Or gambling, probably. It's just for funsies.
There's chips, but no money.
Yeah, so it's
fake chips, no money.
It's fake gambling. It's not real gambling.
Yeah. And I went anyway. Like, I don't know how interested I am.
Okay.
I had okay fun, but the fun part was, so I started sending you and Wyatt photos
right.
of me. At first, it was me holding a sword, and then the next one was of a rare like knife that he made, and then the last photo was just me in full chain mail, just like a shirt with his helmet on.
And that's your first chainmail wearing experience, right?
No, I had actually same group. Noah Gordon had some chainmail that
the older brother to who I played cards with.
Yeah, he has some chainmail, and for one Halloween, I got to wear it just for a second. But
yeah, I'm gonna throw the pictures up because I want people to see this. This is we were just receiving pictures, and I'm like, where are you? First off, the sword you were holding was Theoden's sword from Lord of the Rings.
From Lord of the Rings, yeah.
The little, it's shaped like a heart, but it's two horses' heads, right?
Yep.
Super cool.
That was cool. It felt heavy too. Like, it definitely was a heavier replica than they had in the movie, because I know.
No, that dude's that actor's just badass. He's just strong.
No, well, I was going to say, I know like Eowyn ain't just swinging a sword that was that heavy around. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
It didn't look like it. I guarantee it.
I don't know. She's acting like these swords got some weight to it.
But
you need a strong, heavy sword. So when you're casting it, it's got a lot of power, right? And it does take some strength. Anyways, that's cool. I did want to bring up, before we get too deep into our topics, I did want to ask, have you seen the scuttlebutt?
Scuttlebutt.
Around
no,
this
yeah,
Tucker,
I did watch.
Around this Tucker Carlson interview with Putin. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay, so Tucker Carlson secretly
slipped past me.
I'm
too busy, I'm too busy. Like last week, I brought it up. Jamming out to that Ben Shapiro.
Okay, Ben Shapiro's definitely talking about this, but listen, Tucker Carlson. This is kind of a big deal for the world of podcasting, because Tucker Carlson's essentially doing podcast interviews now, right? Under his own network, self-owned, self-run, because he was with Fox News forever, got fired, and he's like, I didn't like him anyway. So now he's posting stuff on all the platforms, and there was rumors that Tucker Carlson had gone or was in Russia, and people started saying, is he going to do an interview with Putin? Right? And then CNN immediately starts saying, if he does this, this is treasonous, this is anti-American, right? So everybody who hates Tucker Carlson. I haven't heard the interview yet, and I haven't heard all of it, but that's the same thing like saying Trump walking into North Korea a little while back when he did that. People did think that was treasonous.
I know, but they're just going to say that because it's who's doing it. If Joe did that, then
Joe Rogan would
be like, sure. No, I'm saying Joe Biden.
Oh, Joe Biden? Yeah, they wouldn't care.
Joe Biden.
They'd be like, oh, good job for trying to make peace.
Good job.
Yeah, you're right. But so he starts getting hate before the thing's even released. Then he starts posting images that says, interview with Putin coming soon. And then he released an image that says it's available on my streaming platform for early. And then the next day he released it publicly. He
definitely made some money off that.
Oh, I watched all 2 hours of this.
Did you pay for it?
No. I watched all 2 hours of this thing after he posted on YouTube. It's currently sitting at over 10 million views on YouTube.
Sick.
And it's a harder listen, but I need to share my thoughts around this thing. Okay.
When you when you get a chance, can you text me the link to that video?
Sure.
I might take a peek at it.
It's interesting because Putin doesn't speak English. So they both have translators in their ear. So he'll ask a question in English, the translator's in their ear, and then Putin responds in Russian,
And
and then the
it's like subtitled?
translator is doing it. No, they do a voiceover
Oh, okay.
for Putin, so you understand what he's saying. It's harder to listen to, but because it's such a high profile person, you sit through it and you pay attention, right? So they did a translator interview for 2 hours, and I will say, and you're going to see memes popping up because the big joke about it is that he wanted to start the interview talking about, which they get to the whole war with Ukraine topic, but that was like what Tucker wanted to talk about. But he started it by giving him a history lesson that went on for about 45 to 50 minutes. And he went all the
Yeah.
way back to like the 1400s, right? About the
Okay.
history of Russia and explaining everything. And he thinks it's very important. And Tucker kind of is getting annoyed. He's like, but we're talking
He
about
wants to
today.
ask
You
him
know what I mean?
a question.
um,
That's interesting. I've heard a couple podcasts where people say that they're like, really, there's a certain group of people that are like, we got to look at the past to see what we're doing for the future, and like they're very much about history and I'm not saying I'm not.
He's a savant
also,
of history in general, especially Russian history.
Yeah, I mean, this people probably might hate the statement I'm about to make, but we didn't have any Apple Vision Pros back in the 1800s, so it's kind of hard to take everything. I'm not saying we can't learn things from the past, but we can't take everything from the past because we're in new territory. We're in new waters per se here.
Yeah, we are in new waters, especially with nuclear weapons and everything. But when I listen to this, I will say, although I'm not a fan of Russian politics, I'm not a fan of Putin himself, especially how he runs it. I mean, they're communistic, or I guess it's communistic. I'm honestly not a big knowledge. I know it's not a free market. So, but honestly, this interview put my spirits at rest because all of American media is pushing out this narrative and really trying to fearmonger essentially about we're going to get into a nuclear war.
And Putin, he said no.
Putin said, I mean, when you hear his words and you hear what he has to say about it, he's very even keel and he's very like, that is ridiculous. Not only am I not considering that, like I understand the detriment that has on humans, not just Russia, but humans, right? And he's saying he's been seeking peace with the West and for decades now, since the first Bush presidency. He actually visited America and proposed a whole bunch of stuff. He breaks down his side of the story, essentially. And when you listen to the interview from his perspective, you will see that there's been multiple presidents that have told him, yes, we want to try to make peace here. And then there are agents like CIA kind of stuff, operatives, that are running the show behind the scenes and then say, I don't care what anybody tells you, we're not doing that. You know what I mean? And it's kind of, in his perspective, they have pursued peace and pursued good diplomatic decisions for a very long time. And they've been stiff-armed over and over and over and over and over again for decades. And so the only option was being pushed into this war with Ukraine. And now it's being funded by America. And he says it would be over in a couple weeks if America stops giving money. So really it's a political American driven conflict. And the fact that everyone is just fear mongering and saying Russia's just going to hit us with a nuclear weapon because they want to control the world. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not saying Putin's a good guy. He definitely has done a lot of pretty nefarious and things that I definitely am not a fan of how they run their government, because I'm a fan of America and and what it's founded on. But I'm not scared of Russia anymore. You know what I mean? Like honestly, I feel like him as a person is not going to make a rash nuclear war decision, because he seems like he's got a pretty decent, thoughtful head on his shoulders, and he's not going to do something like that. So I would recommend listening to it. And you don't have to be a fan of Russia, and you definitely don't have to be pro-Russia or pro-Putin after this interview. But
Or
just
pro Carl Tuckerson.
Or Carl, Tuckerson Carl.
Mr. Tuck.
Tucker Carlson. But what it will do is it's a good counter to the propaganda, fear, warmongering that we're getting constantly in America's media. And it calms your spirits and allows you to live in this place where we don't have to worry about all these things everyone's telling us to worry about.
Don't worry.
Yeah, we could take a little bit of a book of, we could take a little bit of the Bob Marley treatment here, and that interview will do it for you, in my opinion.
So funny that's what we think, right? As that movie's coming out.
Yeah. I mean, look, don't worry about a thing. I mean, maybe the American economy.
I ain't gonna worry about a thing.
He does bring up a lot of interesting points about his perspective of the American economy. And he's basically saying, like, we don't know what you're doing. You guys are being foolish. And I have to agree with him. Our government is being foolish with our dollar.
Well, not even just our dollar. This is something that I've been thinking about recently, but I'm not going to talk about it because this is not the podcast that we're going to bring that up.
Well, we don't typically talk about politics, but
the Patreon, if you want to talk about that.
Are we going to talk about it though?
Sure, we'll talk about it. We'll do a couple episodes of the Midnight Special.
No, we'll do a pre-show. We'll do the pre-show for the Patreon where you can talk about it. But so look, I highly recommend it. Go watch it on YouTube. It's free. And listen to the whole thing, because if you're constantly consuming news, it's a good refresher from an outside world leader, outside of the UN and American West propaganda that we're constantly fed. And with that, also, I think it opens the door to other podcasters being able to do more stuff like this, right? And hopefully it opens the door to people like Trump being like, yeah, I'm going to go on Joe Rogan Experience, or I'm going to go on Tucker Carlson and do like 3-hour podcasts. You know what I mean? Because I feel like these older world.
I think we've seen this for a while, but maybe, and I don't want to give him all the credit because I don't think he's fully done this, but we talk about this a lot of, like, Joe Rogan had kind of started where he would, talk to MMA fighters because he's a big fight guy, but then he also turns around and has a really big podcast with Elon Musk where he talks about that, and then he talks with a political candidate, and he kind of talks with all kinds of people. Yeah, and so I think he's broken down the barrier in a sense, and I'm not giving Joe Rogan all the credit, but because of that, we have seen people like. He's not in the running anymore, but Vivacek, going around.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yes, excuse me.
Vivacek. Vivacek is not a person. Vivek. Keep going. We know what you're saying.
That name. He's been going around, doing podcasts and stuff, even after the fact that he's dropping out.
He's like 38, so he's.
Well, I know,
he's
but
younger.
Then
he's in the mix
for all of that, but I don't know.
It is hilarious that our potential, like at least a potential future vice president, was on Flagrant 2.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of a funny thing to say. But I think it is a good move. Look, as much as we love podcasts and long form conversations, that's how we get to know people that are going to run the country. And unless like podcasting is not a big part of your campaign, we just won't trust you. We don't. Debates are sports events, not actual, reasonable ways of getting to understand a candidate's policies and who they are as a person. But a 3-hour conversation will, because about an hour and a half in, you start to see the real side of them. You know what I mean?
I don't know if that's true. Someone
I think
fake
so.
it for 3 hours and then come back.
You're at least going to see glimmers. You're
And
definitely not going to see that in a debate or any other or 15-minute interviews they do on CNN. You know what I mean?
maybe.
So I think casual long form conversation is going to be how we make a lot of decisions and get to know a lot of important people in history, as we already are doing.
Yeah.
And with
Speaking
that,
of long form content, you doing anything for the Super Bowl this weekend?
I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna see
You're gonna
probably.
peep at it. You might eat some pizza or chicken wings while you do it,
Yeah, I'll
or
probably.
a
I'll
bag
probably.
of Lay's potato chips.
I'll probably have Josh Gordon come over because he'll be by himself for a few weeks, and so yeah, I'll probably tell him to come on over and watch the game with me, and yeah, we'll see. This will come out after the Super Bowl, but I'm just gonna say this:
Oh yeah.
predict it right here, okay?
Mhm.
So when you see this after the Super Bowl, if this is correct, then I'll be a genius. If it's not correct, then you can just continue to view me as you already do, which is a conspiracy theorist who just makes wild claims with no basis of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the Chiefs are going to win, bro. The Chiefs are going to win because
Mhm.
the NFL can't not capitalize on this Swiftie movement.
You think it's rigged?
Look, I've never been on the bandwagon of is it rigged, but just the fact of the huge NFL pop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I'm 50-50 on if it's rigged because the fact that the Swifties have made it all the way to the Super Bowl seems like a big marketing stunt. But then you also have the quarterback. You guys know who I'm talking about. The young guy who took the Super Bowl last year, right? He's a good quarterback who's like, the Steve McQueen of the NFL right now. Not Steve McQueen, whatever.
I am speed.
Yeah, he's popular and he won the Super Bowl last year. And so there's the Chiefs have a good reason to be there because of the quarterback. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
So I'm kind of split 50-50. It could be a marketing scam or it could just be this quarterback like Tom Brady is taking them to the Super Bowls,
He's doing it.
So we'll see.
I'm
If the
just,
Chiefs win, it's because they're appeasing that. I'm sure it's either going to be a happy accident or intentionally they're trying to appease the Swifties because they got so much attention when Taylor Swift.
Let's touch on some entertainment stuff. I know by the time this comes out, we'll probably already have come out with stuff. But you predict any like big trailers dropping for the Super Bowl? Anything like?
Yeah, a lot of Dune stuff's going to be out for the Super Bowl.
Oh,
there'll
be Dune, but Dune's coming out soon, and they've already been putting out Dune stuff. Maybe
I think. Look,
we said last year Avatar was going to drop it during the Super Bowl, and they did not. There's going to be a Super Bowl this year. I mean, another Avatar this year?
No, next year.
Next year.
Oh, 2025. No, not.
We predicted that
2-year period in between Avatars. That's the current schedule. In between each Avatar is 2 years.
Well, we predicted that like a couple years ago, and it didn't work out. Maybe something else would be dropping. Hopefully,
I think it's going to be a lot of Dune stuff, and I think there's a small chance that we could get a Joker 2 trailer. There's a small chance we could get one.
Maybe.
But I also think they're probably going to run trailers for the new Quiet Place Day 1 film because that dropped this week. So they probably have that in their ad campaign to show that trailer. Yeah, and we'll probably talk about that. We've probably talked about that this week, so you'll probably see a video of it already. But I want to get to our first topic, all right? Because we might end up lingering on this for a while. So
you might be lingering.
The question is, what will movies be like in the future? All right, and there's not a whole lot. There's a lot of ideas around this, but so I wanted to break it down into this category. Right now, movies for all of film history has been a window into a world. All right. So I want to say what are movies going to be like with the window, and then what are movies
Okay.
going to be like interactive, so inside the world, you know? I think
Um,
we're going to go two directions with this.
so I think I already have a tiny bit of disagreement to an extent. I think an average person, yes, that's how they're going to consume content. But then we also are going to have a third one that's not money feasible, but we have like what is it called? The Sphere in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's also going to be that option that's kind of a third option
It's
that
like
we've
a
talked
it's
about
like
a
a
little bit in
theater,
the
but it's a
past.
surround sound. It's a surround of it's a little bit more than 180-degree
Yeah.
screen, so you're in the
So
world without the
we've
goggles
we
on.
talked about that a little bit already in previous episodes, but that's not going to be feasible for money. It's
Everybody,
not going to
yeah.
be, yeah. So your two options are going to be for the mainstream people, but that is an option. I just wanted to kind of touch on
It'll
that.
be an
Like,
experience that maybe a majority or large minority of the human population will experience once or twice in their lifetime, right?
yeah,
That's as far as the sphere goes. And they're going to be building a couple more, but that's going to be something you have to travel to. And when they make like a really awesome film catered for the sphere, people will travel to go
yeah,
see it, you know? But but as far as this conversation, we're talking about a window versus inside. And the problem with inside that I always see initially, you know, so right now we have the Apple Vision Pro that, although it has VR capabilities, and that's a really big aspect of this, people are really utilizing it for augmented reality. So it's creating reality in your real space, in your existing
oh yeah,
space. You know what I mean?
hmm
So you can create computer screens, or you can watch a movie and blow it up to however big you want with, you know, in the environment you're in. So, or you could change the environment to a VR world and blow the screen up as big as you want inside the VR world, you know? So there's a lot of
yeah,
options here, but a lot of people are using it for augmented reality, specifically the Apple Vision Pro. And I think that's the goal for Apple. Although they have VR capabilities, they want it to be like an asset to your everyday rather than a gaming device, you know?
um, yes, they do, but we do have to kind of touch on something that a lot of people are not talking about much. Netflix and YouTube and other platforms that I don't know them all. I just know those two specifically that are entertainment, the huge entertainment based platforms
Sure.
are not on this device and they will not be on this device, at
Well,
least as
they
of now.
will just down the road, because right now you can go to
You
netflix.com on a browser
you
and
can go to
watch your movies
netflix.com,
there.
but you can't watch, you can't have apps. And that's the company saying, no, we're not going to put our app.
But listen, we're talking about what movies are like in the future, not what movies are like right now. You know what I mean?
They might be on there, but
They're
I mean, you
100%
got
going
to
to
at
be
least
on there.
acknowledge that they're not on
Look,
there right now.
they're definitely going to be on there. The problem is they're dealing with a contract issue right now, and lawyers are dealing with this. They're going to be on there. In the same way that you have Netflix app on your phone, you're going to have the Netflix app in your Apple Vision Pro. It's just down the road. It maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, but it's going to be there. And they're going to start creating films with
It,
VR in mind. So
unless this gets so popular that, you know, Netflix starts dying because they're not on the platform.
they're not going to
And then
die.
they get pushed
Look,
out because
now you're
Apple
fear
is,
mongering.
I'm going to fearmonger the crap out of this.
Listen, I want to get to the crux of the conversation first. Hold on.
Oh, I thought this was the crook.
No, because so I want us to versus this. So the question is, do we think, I personally think that a window and interactive storytelling is going to be the future, not or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So and you can do it with VR or without VR, right, as far as the headset goes. So And when it comes to, I want to dive in. Let's first talk about, and then we'll get to the window for the future. But let's first talk about the interactive world, meaning we are entering a space that is dangerously similar to VR gaming, but we need to figure
Okay.
out how we're telling narrative stories through the avenue of virtual reality. Because
Mhm.
if you just say you can walk around in a world, then it's a game, but that you make all the decisions. But if you're watching a movie, a story narrative driven piece in a
Yeah.
world that's similar to a virtual reality gaming world where you can walk around and interact with it, then you're being controlled by a constantly moving forward story rather than being controlled by your actions. But the problem is the space will feel the same, right?
So it'll be interesting to, right now they have the interactive um, moon, and that's kind of what everybody's seeing. They have a couple more than that, but when you don't want to be disturbed and you only want to be fully in your headset,
Uh-huh.
then you can go to the moon and you're like on the moon.
Right.
It'd be interesting if they filmed a movie in that space that you can get up and walk around in the frame,
Mm-hmm.
but only to an extent of like there's a wood scene and you can walk around and see it from 360 degrees.
Yeah.
Like the actor that's in there and they're still moving and it's still playing and you can't stop them from doing that, but you're there and you can kind of walk around and look at it.
Right.
That would be interesting.
It would be interesting. So the question, and here comes where we're kind of getting into what already exists in books and a couple series on Netflix. It's choose your adventure. So
Mm-hmm.
you dictate, so you see the scene in virtual reality. You can get up, you can, look at all angles of the space. You can kind of interact with the environment visually and move around in the environment that these characters and this story is taking place in. But I think that what would be cool, and I think they're going to lean into this harder, is since you're in the space, you are in fact a third person character in the story. So you have a say with where the story goes, but the story has to be played out according to the consequences of your decision making throughout the story. So in books, you have choose your own reality that's been around for a long, or choose your own adventure, which basically says if you want the character to do this, go to page whatever. If you want the character to do this, go to page whatever. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
then Netflix tried it out with a series where it's like, do we go in to the room or do we not go in the room? You know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
that changes the story based on your decision, but you're still a slave to where the story goes and the consequences of your decision, as opposed
So
to a
I
game,
I don't
right?
think they might make a couple of these and maybe just dabble in it as an idea, but I don't think this is actually what's going to happen for the
Well,
purpose of
you
I
mean
think
it's not going
right
to be
now
mainstream?
entertainment is going to be no, right now entertainment is going to be I lost my train of thought. No, when people watch movies, they are there to turn their mind off and just watch what they're doing. They
Sure.
don't want a decision with what they're
So
watching.
the question is, why would you want to get up and move around the room then? Why would you want to watch a movie like that at all?
I don't think they will. I don't think the average person wants to do that. They want to just turn their mind off and just it's cool to do for some things, but I don't think everything's going to be like
So
that
you think the future of
because
VR movies are going to be you sit down and you're placed in a sitting place in the environment that the scene's taking place in, and you could just look around. You think that's it?
yes, because
Without
I don't
getting
think
up and walking
that's
around.
what's going to be popular. Yes, because people don't want to be up walking around. They want to just relax and turn their mind off while they're watching something. So if they can just watch something comfortably and still be relaxing after a long day of work, then yes, that's what they want to
Okay.
see.
So this transitions ourselves to the window idea because essentially, if you cannot get up and move around the room, then we're going back to a window. It's just a wide window that takes up all of your peripheral vision, you know?
Which you can do that with these Apple Vision Pro. There, so if you have a screen, like you can connect. Well, not with a screen specifically, but like photos that you currently have. Like if you have a landscape photo of
Sure.
you on top of a building, you can pull it up and then kind of curve it a little bit. So in your vision, it looks like it's doing this.
Right.
And you can look and be like, it's
But that's
almost
not
like I'm
fun.
there on top of the
That's not
building.
fun. But that's not fun
Right.
because
But
it's not
but
real
that with
360 degrees.
that with a movie, I think is kind of pretty cool. I mean, that's relaxing enough that you can look and see everything, but you're not like overwhelmed and you can just kind of, chill while you're watching this movie.
All right. So the problem I have with this is that one place sitting there observing from a 360-degree view already exists because there are already short films on YouTube that you can literally watch in VR, or you can watch on your camera and scroll around to see the space in 360 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That people's filmed with 360-degree camera where they just do a scene with a 360-degree camera in the room, and it slowly might move around the room so you can see different parts of it, but you're a slave to that movement, um, and then and in so doing, all you can do is you're moving, the camera's moving, and while it's moving, you can look around. I think that's still a window type style of entertainment as
That's what
opposed to
people want, though.
interacting.
I don't think
You
they want to
think?
interact, is what I'm saying. I don't think they'll try it out a couple times, but overall, they're not going to interact because they don't want to interact with what they're doing.
Okay, so then if you're saying, so I kind of disagree, but we can move on. I think that there is going to be a market for people who want to move around in this scene that's being taken place and control that movement. But we don't
They
have to
do in
stay on that.
VR video game, yes, but not in a movie.
So then let's move on to this idea of a window. So if we're talking about, we already brought up that it's not the future, it's right now. You can put on this headset and blow up your window to bigger than an IMAX theater screen. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch movies right now with the headset on like that. Whether it's in your house or it's in a different world, you can already experience movies, but it's still through a window, but you have control of that window. Now, how do you think the window storytelling version has legs for the next 50 years? I think they do. I think there's still going to be film, like literally Christopher Nolan burn it into the tape film, you know what I mean? And I think that modern film techniques are still important for visual storytelling, that the window will still be around.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of creative things technologically that allows us to enjoy this window in a new way. So I've played with the idea that perspective for this window, where if you like shift around, or like you can almost peer around the person's head, but you're still looking into a window. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you have almost this wraparound 3D look for your films, where it's like the window has so much more depth to it, as opposed to a flat screen with visual depth. It actually has depth there,
Yeah.
Or even like a window that you can't physically touch a face, but you could wrap your hand into the window and go around
That's kind of
a person's
that's
face, and
weird.
your fingers disappear because it's behind the person's face if you reach into the window. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have those kind of thoughts but it's ultimately still window technology, window storytelling. And
Yeah, that I agree with more than you interacting with things, because that's more game-esque and people don't want that when they're just watching a movie. But I would agree, yes, a upgraded version of
this window
what we're
concept.
seeing Windows definitely is a thing, and especially if I think watching things have become, I mean, there always kind of been two things of, at least now, it's turn your mind off and just watch this to relax at the end of a work day,
Mm-hmm.
or an interactive not interactive with the screen, but a a fun time with you and a friend watching
Right.
this movie together.
Right.
So they have to be able to,
Oh, that's true.
capitalize
If
on
you put the
those two
headset on,
things.
well, if you put the headset on, you could be sitting next to your friend and talking to your friend on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
couch
but
watching a
still
movie
watching
together
the same thing and
and being in two different
watching
places, right?
and you being able to like look over with the headset on and see him sitting on the couch with you, or like your girlfriend or your someone who you're in a relationship, you're just watching this movie with them,
But then you can't
and
snuggle up. You can't snuggle up for the movie. That's sad.
you can, but you're generated thing. That's weird. That's also weird.
But it
We're
would be
touching
cool
it.
to say, like, speaking of the Super Bowl, it would be cool to be like, hey, I'm going to watch the Super Bowl with the boys, but you don't have to go anywhere. You're just in the room with all your boys, and everyone could be in a different location, but you're all
Yeah,
watching the
like
Super Bowl in the same
on
room
the
together.
field.
No, not on the field. I mean, in your living room through a window.
Well, no,
but you're with your boys in this virtual space.
I guess so. I mean, you're gonna be eating your with chicken wings like this with a headset on.
Maybe. Maybe. But the cool thing in virtual space, you can make that chicken wing look like alien tentacle, like you're eating alien tentacles to everybody else. But really, in reality, you're just eating chicken wings. You know what I mean?
I mean, chicken doesn't. Alien does taste like chicken. Of all the times I've eaten alien.
So let's break this down just to put a cap on this conversation. So
Okay.
there's going to be a market, in my opinion. It might be a smaller market, but there is going to be a market where kind of a narrative storytelling driven game kind of meets storytelling world kind of meets the gaming VR world, and you can walk around the space. It's probably going to be more popular, like Josh was saying, to sit down and just look around in 360-degree view, as opposed to getting up and moving around in the space. But the window technology is still going to be the king, as it's just going to be more interesting who you're watching the movie with, the technology for the window itself. And also, as we said, it's not even the future. You already can control how big your window is. This is going to put, in some fashion, this is going to seriously take a hit on the large screen TV market.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because if everyone's watching movies with headsets, you don't need to buy a big flat screen anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you've seen this. You definitely probably have. But like even now, they don't use flat screens as much as like I saw this one that's gentleman had. It was just a piece of glass, like literally just a piece of glass.
Yeah.
And that was his TV. And I helped him set it up. And he was like, you got to be very careful because it's just a piece of glass. And we got to put the stand on it.
Is it projector technology?
Nope. It's literally a piece of glass that.
How does it get the image on there? Is it clear, see-through? Is it see-through?
No, it's not.
Okay, then why would they use a glass as the TV? Like the screen
because
itself?
It's literally the thinnest thing ever. It's just like a piece of glass that just goes down, and then all the technology's right here in the base, basically.
But it's see-through. Is the piece of glass see-through?
I don't remember, honestly, but I saw it.
Then it has to be projector technology. It has to be like short throw projector technology onto the piece of glass, right? That has to be it, because we don't have.
I don't remember.
We don't have technology.
I don't know. It was a screen. It was a screen. No, I literally helped him set it up. It was like a huge screen.
All right, text me. Try to find a picture of this and text it to me, because if we have it, I want to throw it up.
I'm not good at explaining it, but
I want to throw it up on screen so people can see this, what you're talking about. Try to find a picture of it, not now, but afterward. But yeah, so I think for the future, you're going to have options for what you enjoy. But I think the majority of people are still going to, and also we're going to upgrade. So we don't have to use this big old headset every time we want to watch something. It'll just be a pair of glasses that, like the old, what is it? It's not, like the cool guy glasses that kind of wrap around your face.
Yeah.
It's going to be more those, because we need to be able to control what your peripheral vision sees.
Yeah.
you can't just have flat glasses out
So
in front because then you're
E-
not seeing it on the side, but it'll just be
Ethan
glasses.
had Ethan bought some safety glasses that were, I don't know how to describe them, but it was almost like, when you have like a motorcycle helmet and you put it down
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah.
It was almost like that without the helmet. So it was just like a pair of glasses, but it covered like over your eyes and your
Right.
face. It was like this big.
Yeah.
And um they were sunglasses, and they were very lightweight because all they are sunglasses. But me and Wyatt were talking about this of being like, if that was the technology, it'd be a lot different.
Yeah.
That when it becomes that, the biggest thing is the battery, because I watched a YouTube video and I knew this was going to happen. I knew as soon as I saw Apple Vision Pro, I'm like, people are going to say
Battery sucks.
being an Apple Vision Pro for 50 hours. I guarantee that's Mr. Beast's next video. I'm spending he already did a living in VR for 24 hours with a bunch of his friends.
So
and
he's going to do Apple Vision Pro for 50.
He's going to do living in Apple Vision Pro for a week. I guarantee it. That's going to be his next video.
But they also, another part of the future is upgrading. It is actually just honestly creating hologram technology without needing anything on your face. So that's where you literally have a box in a room, and that box can project anywhere in the room, whatever you want. That's going to have to be a big deal as well, because I don't know the future is necessarily, the future can be glasses, but it can't be goggles, and projector technology combined with, or hologram technology combined with glasses, a lot more easier thing to wear all the time. That could be the future. But right now, the Vision Pro, the VR goggles, they are just the beginning of something that's the new world, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a very fun beginning.
A photo, and this is not exactly what it is, but it was basically like this.
It is see-through. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's see-through, and it's using.
I don't know where he bought it, but I never have gone to the store and seen this. Somehow this guy got it somewhere.
Okay, so it's using projector technology. That's what I'm saying. It's the poor man's version of hologram. You know what I mean? I've had a.
You think that's what it is?
Well, I think what that is, they're going to do that with phones soon, to where your phone will be see-through, but there's just going to be a little part at the base or at the base and the top that's not see-through, that be able to cast everything. Like it's some kind of hologramic projector technology that will cast it on something that's see-through. I think that's because we already have it. If those TVs exist, it 100% is projector technology. It's short.
It was very, 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 like he couldn't set it up himself, so he had to have me help him.
Yeah,
and
our phones are gonna be that in not too long, I think.
Yeah, and so I literally just held it up, and I'm like, I'm scared to hold this up because this is like $5,000.
Yeah. Anyways, so that's the future of movies and how movie experiences will be like in the future. Let's go ahead and thank our Patreon supporter, Shelby. Thank you, Shelby, for being a Patreon supporter. We
like
love
Shelby
you that you're
been around in a minute. Maybe we haven't thanked Shelby.
I always thank Shelby on my produced episode.
I guess so. Maybe I forgot.
If you join us on Patreon, links in the description, you get a pre-show that we do every single week, as well as watch parties with you and Wyatt. And
maybe once in a while, a midnight special will show up there.
If we do a midnight special, it'll definitely be on Patreon. And obviously early access to all podcast episodes, and your personal shout out in the episode, and your name in the credits at the end of the podcast. So consider supporting us over on Patreon. That allows us to keep going. It gives us some cash flow, and you don't have to sign up for the most expensive thing, but man, we love everyone who supports us over there. So thank you, Shelby, for being a Patreon supporter. I also, so let's dive into this. I wanted to talk a little bit. I saw this news. And I think it has cascading effects. So I want to talk a little bit about how the Rings of Power has already ruined Gandalf. All right. So obviously, because they did not, so the news is the Rings of Power season 2 has the rights to not only Gandalf, but all 5 of the
Wizards.
of the wizards that came to Middle Earth during the end of the Second Age or the beginning of the Third Age. And they were sent directly by AU and the Valar. What wizards are essentially are Maiar, which is they are the apprentices to the Valar. The Valar are like the high angels to AU or Iluvatar, right? For the world of, and Iluvatar is the god of the Lord of the Rings universe. He created these high angels, which are called the Valar, and some of them stayed in this heavenly, place with Iluvatar, and some of them went to it's the place in the west, the place across the sea that the shows in the movie describes. It's like the heaven place on earth, if you will, for the world. And a lot of the Valar stay there, right? The Valar are the angelic beings that are on earth that literally run it as kings, but they never came to Middle Earth, right? Morgoth, who is the master, if you will, to Sauron. So Morgoth was one of the Valar. He's like the Satan character of this story, where he was a Valar, he became corrupted. So with all that said, the Maiar are the apprentices or the servants of the high angels that are the Valar, right? So they are in some ways also angelic beings, but they were created for as lower angels, and a lot of them.
So these are just the history of the wizards.
Yeah, and so what happened was when Sauron started, after there was a big war with Sauron and some of the other Maiar and the elves and everybody and men. And he basically his power was diminished. And they thought in the Second Age, and they thought that, or the end of the First Age or something, or the Second Age or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's a long history with a lot of characters. But the Maiar, 5 of the Maiar were sent to Middle Earth, not as warriors, but rather, if you will, prophets, almost prophets. To sway and to lead the people, the elves, the men, the dwarves, in the direction as protection against the spirit of Sauron that they believe lingers, right?
I don't mean to cut you off on your history, but the only people who are interested in this history lesson are the hardcore Lord of the Rings fans.
Listen, I know 100% that
the hardcore fans hate this show. They hate this show. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about Rings of Power. I'm not talking about this podcast specifically.
Right.
You're the hardcore fans who are interested in the history things. Why is Amazon trying to do this high lore history thing and
not do it justice?
Not do it justice, but also the fans that are actually interested in that.
Well, that's a freaking good question. That's a freaking good question. So to get to the crux of it, Gandalf in the books was described as very wise. He had mastered the art of patience and kindness as a Maiar angelic being. And he served under the head of the Valar, right? The king of the Valar, who lives across the sea. In Valinor is the name of the city that's over there. So he is well connected, and he didn't want to be sent to Middle Earth because he was worried that he wouldn't be able to stop Sauron. And they actually chose to say that makes you the perfect candidate to be able to Like the fact that you're not eager to go fight Sauron, that makes you a good candidate. So him as well as 4 others were sent, and when they arrived, they took the being of old wise men, you know? That's
Yeah.
why they appear old. Um, and Gandalf's, I think it's like Orlin or Arlen was his name as a Maiar, and he received the name Gandalf from the men of Middle Earth. The name
Yeah.
Mithrandian he got from the
The
elves.
wandered one.
Um,
Yeah.
and the reason Gandalf particularly was considered a wanderer was because all the other Maiar wizards became made a dwelling place for themselves, but Gandalf never did. He wandered around Middle Earth for thousands of years. The big thing that the Rings of Power got wrong was that why they ruined it. Well, first off, we'll talk about if we think that the character, the wizard that showed up, is indeed Gandalf based on the
Yeah.
show, but because they didn't confirm it.
They didn't confirm it
But
yet. We'll see.
we'll discuss that once I finish this. If the character is Gandalf, let's see how they ruined it. So first off, Gandalf was wise,
Mm-hmm.
and they brought him to Middle Earth in a meteor. You know what I mean? As this stupid person who didn't know who he was. You know,
Yeah.
he didn't even know how to speak. Like he had to be taught. That's already kind of a really stupid creative decision that does not fit with the character of Gandalf at all. Because he didn't lose his personhood or his purpose when he came to Middle Earth. He didn't have
No.
amnesia. I will say if you want to send him in a meteor, there's maybe some room for that because the books, I don't believe, describe the nature in which they came to Middle Earth. But the other big thing they got wrong, if this character is indeed Gandalf, is Gandalf came around the year 1000 of the Third Age. The show takes place at the end of the Second Age. So if it is at the very end of the Second Age that this is indeed Gandalf showing up, then you're about 1,000 years off. You know what I mean?
So it definitely probably isn't Gandalf.
Well, the problem is so in the show, that's just a couple reasons. So he shouldn't have lost his personhood. They brought him in at the wrong time. And first off, the hobbits or the Harfoots, they didn't even show up on the map till the beginning of the Third Age. So the fact that we have Hobbit-like characters in the Second Age at all is not a part of source material at all. They were not there during the Second Age. There's no record of them for men or elven history until the Third Age. So it's silly.
I mean, clearly they're messing up the timeline here to give us characters that they think are beloved and wanting to
yes, because they're trying to capitalize.
The Harfoots, the Hobbit may create Harfoot characters.
Let's bring Gandalf, you know.
So let's bring him into it. You love Arwen, or no, wrong character. My name's again mixed up. Galadriel.
Galadriel, yeah. And Galadriel was there during the Second Age, but she wasn't doing. But she also, during the Second Age, she was a queen. She wasn't the she wasn't a warrior going out to war and hunting Sauron.
So their timeline is so messed up here.
It is.
It's almost like we're saying, like, Adam came after, the cross.
Yeah, sort of. That's a funny thing to say, but yeah, you're kind of right. And actually, when Sauron went into hiding, he wasn't discovered until the Third Age. And actually, it lines up more with the Hobbits that Peter Jackson made.
Yeah,
where Dol Guldur, that tower in Mirkwood, I believe, that was where Sauron was hiding. And they didn't know if it was Sauron. It was he wasn't come out till the Third Age. So it's really freaking silly. Maybe the show will somehow stick to the book, and in the next season or the third season, however many they get, they'll fix it. They'll place Sauron back into hiding in Dol Guldur or something. I don't know, but apparently, so they've from the Tolkien estate, the Amazon has received the rights to the 3 wizards that came from Valar, or from, the sent by the Valar to Middle
Yeah.
Earth. So now they can include them in the story, and there's debates on, is the wizard in the story one of the 2 blue wizards? Is it Radagast? Is it Saruman? Or is it indeed Gandalf? And I'm pretty sure with the heavy hinting at the end of the show with the follow your nose and all that stuff,
Yeah.
that's Gandalf. And I don't think
has to
they're
be.
clever enough. If you take the whole show and say, was anything they did clever? The storytelling was atrocious. It didn't follow any of the lore, and they just didn't even tell a coherent story across the board with the first, second, and third act.
Now, the only thing that I kind of was like, oh, this is kind of interesting and got me thinking, and it definitely had holes in it also and things I didn't like, but was the story more of the dwarfs and finding the Mithril.
It wasn't bad because that's not recorded.
That was the portion that I kind of liked, and I'm like, even though they're throwing the dwarf women in there, and we clearly know there ain't no dwarf women.
Well, there is a dwarf women. They just have beards.
Yeah.
They're mistaken for men by other people of Middle Earth, these women.
Mm-hmm.
That's the joke, and that's the reality.
They kind of got a few things messed up, but that was the interesting story about season 1.
You're right.
And people might hate me just for even saying that.
No, I think that's truly the consensus, is the only thing interesting about among Lord of the Rings fans on the internet, because I've watched a lot of stuff on this. The consensus that I've seen more times than not is that the dwarf specific characters, with their mining and with their world in under the mountains and in their kingdoms there, that was the most interesting part of the story. And in fact, the dwarf characters, even though they got a lot of the details for women dwarfs wrong, that the dwarf characters are the most engaging part of the series. And then the relationship with the dwarf guy, I think it's what's the name? Darren? No. Well, the lead dwarf character, man, and his relationship
the king,
with Elrond. That a lot of people felt like that was an okay relationship, but it doesn't make sense because they obviously, based on where Elrond started in the story and where he got to the dwarves, it would have been like a long travel period of time to get to even there. So there's so many issues in around every corner with the Rings of Power, and the dwarves are the only interesting part of the story.
I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed of the Tolkien estate for giving them the rights.
So
I'm ashamed
this is
of everything they've done, and I'm ashamed.
I think both Tolkien and his son, who took over the Tolkien estate after him, would be ashamed, because I believe this is the grandson to Tolkien who's currently running the estate, and he's kind of on the woke train personally. You know what I mean? He's kind of on this stupid freaking
that a younger generation, 3 generations away, is like, I don't really know. I never really knew Tolkien.
He's capitalizing on not only his grandfather and his father's hard work for this beloved story, but capitalizing on the fan base of the work of his predecessors to make money for himself. That's the point of this, right? He doesn't really care about the story that his family created because it's going to make him a lot of money. That's so freaking stupid.
I'm just trying to put myself and give him the benefit of the doubt, because I don't know.
I don't think at this point you should.
I don't know if it's one specific person.
After seeing the first season of the Rings of Power, and then to say, all right, you can have the rights also to these 3 wizard characters.
Well, no. Let me just give the benefit of the doubt. Let me give the benefit of the doubt here.
Go ahead and try.
And I don't know if it's even one person. We're kind of saying, oh, his grandson, but let's say it's a bunch of people. But this is their mindset of like, we want to create our own story, and we have the rights to this Lord of the Rings world, Middle Earth. We have the rights to Middle Earth.
Well, they have the rights to the appendices and a few other writings. They don't have the rights to the Silmarillion or the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings books because that's owned by Warner Brothers for movies anyway.
Okay.
You know,
but they have enough to say like, this was our family's story, or this is my grandfather's story. I'm just going to put it in one person perspective.
Okay.
But he's been long gone. So yes, it's beloved, but I also want to create my own story here. I want to create a legacy for myself I'm a storyteller in my own sense. I might not be a great one, but I'm a storyteller in my sense.
Why wouldn't, if you're a true storyteller, write your own fantasy? Don't bastardize your grandfather's, you know? That's true. He's making money for himself off the backs and the care that his grandfather and father took for this story. And it is, because if you actually want to be like, make your own story, leave your grandfather's story out of it, because there's a huge fan base that loves this, knows the lore, understands the time and place and the important moments of these characters and why they're significant. And they're just saying, we have barely any rights to the source material, so we're just going to take names of people and write our own story and change the history of Middle Earth. That's not good. That's terrible.
No.
And so what do you think the likelihood is?
Do we have anything else about the wizards?
What's the likelihood that this is indeed Gandalf? Because I think it's too attractive for them, now that they have the rights to Gandalf, to not make him Gandalf. And I believe that's what they wanted initially anyway. I don't think this is one of the blue wizards. I don't think they could brush it off and say, well, he came during the Second Age, because not all the wizards came at the same time. You know what I mean?
This is definitely Gandalf.
I think so too. I don't think they're clever enough to try to build that
He's
out.
A brown wizard, correct? Or am I incorrect with that?
You have the I can't remember them all. I know that you have the wizards that Gandalf is. I don't know if he's called Gandalf the Grey. I don't know if it's Grey wizards.
He's Gandalf the Grey.
And then you have white wizards.
Books and yes, or
you have white wizards, and then you have like rainbow wizards in some sense. So that's like the hierarchy of power.
Correct. Put it in the comments if you're watching this video. Explain to us, because I'm confused where we're at. Right now in the Rings of Power, he is a brown wizard, correct? Or I could be wrong about that. I'm just assuming. This is what I'm throwing out there, what I think.
He's Gandalf the Grey is what he came to Middle Earth as.
Oh, he came as Gandalf the Grey. So he's still a gray wizard.
I don't think there's a brown.
Radagast the Brown.
Yeah, you're right.
So I don't know if like he becomes the gray later, or if he is right now the gray wizard. And that's the question. Is this character that we're looking at right here on the slides, is he Gandalf the Gray? Or he could be Gandalf the Brown. So he could be a younger version of Gandalf. He's definitely not Mithrandir yet. He hasn't done any wandering except for...
Okay, so here's... So essentially, they're sort of ranking. So in some fashion, you're more powerful with your ranks. So what a quick Google search said is Saruman the White is chief and most powerful of the five. Gray, the Gandalf, and then brown Radagast, and then the sea blue for the other two.
Okay. Really quickly, type into Google, just be like, did Gandalf come to Middle Earth as the Grey Wizard? And see what it says. Because that's a question I'm curious about. Or did he come as like the Brown Wizard and then he became a Grey? That's the question. I mean, I'm right now. I'm trying to
Okay.
become the Grey Wizard.
Gandalf the
I'm
Grey
slowly.
was an angelic spirit sent to Middle Earth to contest the influence. He came as Gandalf the Grey, but I don't know if
Okay.
the colors have to do with the amount of power. I do know that for some reason the white wizard is a status up because obviously Gandalf became Gandalf the White, and
Yeah.
Saruman came to Middle Earth as Saruman the White, and he was the most powerful. So there is a status to it, but I don't know the status hierarchy of gray, brown, blue, what, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um that's some lore I could actually brush up on. But he came as Gandalf the Grey, and he's Gandalf the Grey until he defeats the Balrog and is sent, lives
Yes.
a
Yeah.
thousand
Send back.
years as if it was one day and becomes Gandalf the White. Um, so it's likely that this is indeed Gandalf. I don't think they're going to deviate from that. They're in the same way that they're capitalizing on Elrond and Galadriel and these known characters and destroying their story. They're perfectly
Yeah.
comfortable doing that with Gandalf as well.
Yeah. That I don't know what I think about this, except for Lord the Rings of Power is not great.
No, it's
I the
terrible.
other day, and this is something I didn't know. I'm pretty familiar with like C.S. Lewis's work.
Yep.
With the Narnias and the Screwtape Letters and a lot of his stuff, but I didn't know he created three sci-fi based books that that I don't know when they came out in the timeline of things, like before Narnia, during, or what, but C.S. Lewis made three sci-fi books, and we were talking about this with somebody I know, and they were like, yeah, and they showed me the books that they had them. They're like, you should read them, and I was like, I asked them, I said, are they an allegory? Because I know C.S. Lewis
Yeah.
likes his allegories, and to explain that for people who don't know, it's
Yeah.
based off of like a biblical base. It's kind of following Aslan as God. He dies at the stone
He
table.
wanted to create a
cross.
Christ figure for another world,
Allegory.
essentially. Yeah.
Yes. And I asked them that, and they were like, no, it doesn't. Maybe there's some things in it, but it's not. And so then this always happens.
Mm-hmm.
Someone has to bring up Lord of the Rings. And Lord of the Rings has nothing to do with an allegory.
Yeah.
It's a great story, but it has nothing to do with an allegory.
Tolkien and Lewis were friends. Tolkien was a Catholic and Lewis was a Protestant. And Tolkien specifically wrote in there that this is not meant to be an allegory. It's not meant to represent any of my spiritual beliefs. I'm taking inspiration, but I'm not using it as a allegory. In the same way that C.S. Lewis took Narnia and said, I am creating an allegory for the Christ, as if the Christ was also the Christ of this other fictional world. You know what I mean? Like the same, like Aslan is a representation of the true Christ, and he actually in one world is Jesus, and in another world is Aslan, but they're the same. You know what I mean?
I hope with season 2, Amazon doesn't say, okay, we're doing the House of David. We're trying to dip our toes into all this Christian based film. Let's throw this in there. The Christians will like this. Let's throw this in there. If they do, this is not a threat, but
all right. Let's get to our final bit, because this is actually going to be really fun. We're going to show our hand a little bit, and we're going to rank from our personal opinions the best.
We're going to rank. We've been doing a lot of ranking.
Okay. The rankings are fun, and this is a tier list rank. So we have S tier, A tier, B tier, and so on, right? Yes. We're going to rank the top best fully animated villains, okay?
Why you gotta animate villains it?
So this is animated villains. Now,
this animated villains.
That's right. So here's the blockade, I guess you might say. There are a lot of animated villains like monsters, okay? I did not choose monsters. So what I chose was villains with a personality, that they can communicate and show their intentions with it. All right.
Okay.
So I did not choose, say, Alien from the new Alien films where
Okay.
the
Okay.
alien is animated because he's a monster. I did not choose
Okay.
monsters. So these are villains that can communicate and you know their intentions.
Intention.
Intentions because they can communicate and they have a personality. All right.
Okay.
So let me share my let's see, let me share my actual share screen, and I'm going to do entire screen. I'm going to hit this guy. All right. So we're going to rank these villains. First is Ultron from the Avengers, Koba from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Snoke from the terrible Star Wars sequels, Venom. He's kind of the anti-hero in his movie, but he's still technically a villain. He's a villain hero.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're talking about Tom Hardy's villain. Venom.
Yeah, Venom. Yeah, Quaritch, who becomes fully animated in the Way of Water as as in the Avatar body of the Navi.
Okay.
Smog, who is a dragon, but he has communication and personality.
But he doesn't have much attention except for just gold. Sure.
Right. The white orc, Azog. All right.
Okay.
Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean and Thanos. So what we're talking about is we're not just talking about who are the best villains, but we have to take that into account. How were they acted? Were they dynamic?
Everything.
Did they have good motivation? Also, was it convincing on screen to be fully animated? You know what I mean? And that's the most important. That's the most important of this list is, was it convincing? The reason I chose this is because I watched a really awesome video that broke down why Davy Jones was peak CGI in Hollywood. And it broke down why Davy Jones was so awesome. I'll give you a quick preview of why. One, you weren't creating an actual face. So people were not left in the uncanny valley. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So his face is tentacles, and all that's operating is his eyes, which the eyes are not animated. The eyes are the actor's real eyes. Right?
Real. Yeah.
The rest of his face, his eyebrow movement, his mouth talking, that was all on set in camera capture, motion capture, or performance capture, and then they animated on top of them. The other thing is they didn't have to deal with real skin, because real skin, and so Thanos kind of was really well done, because when you got those close-ups of Thanos, his skin, although he was an alien, his skin looked like the texture of real skin. They didn't have to do that with Davy Jones because he was a glossy figure. So it wasn't humanoid. They didn't have to try to recreate human skin. The two other things is really dynamic lighting. So they just matched the lighting of his animation so perfectly to the environment, what other characters were. And the more important thing is they got a chance to spend so much time on the face and tentacles, because his neck is covered up. You don't have to animate. They're animating his whole body, but his whole body had to be animated with the skin and the movement of the tentacles. They could spend all their time for the detail work on the face and the tentacles, and that's all you had to do. So like when he's moving his head around, you don't have to worry about the shadows and the movements of what the neck would look like. All you have to worry about is the face and the tentacle movement, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the explanation as to why Davy Jones looked the best, because they made it simple for themselves to do so, and also creating an awesome character in the process. So with that in mind, I already have a predisposition that Davy Jones is really high up on the S tier.
Okay, so for your list, though, okay. So
we need to kind of come to an agreement here.
Yeah. Who are we starting with then?
Let's because I already talked about Davy Jones. Let's preliminary put him on the list. All right. Preliminarily,
okay. I would agree he's the higher up in this list.
Let's put him in the middle of S tier and see if anyone is better than him as we talk through this. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right. So I would say, since I also brought up Thanos, let's try to rank him. So Thanos occasionally hits the uncanny valley for me, as far as his
Okay.
facial movement and his expressions. Like we that's a big problem with animation is the uncanny valley, and we can't seem to get out of that when you're doing a real human face or what appears to be a human like face. So Thanos is really well done, but because they're doing a more humanoid face, it hits and expressions, it hits the uncanny valley for me a lot. You know what I mean?
So I think he's in A tier for this reason because he's not giving us a performance of "Do you fear death?"
Right.
and then that pop. He's
Not an
not giving us all
awesome
that. He's
performance.
just kind of
Yeah, Bill
stoic.
Nye freaking just crushed it playing Davy Jones.
Science guy.
I think they're the same name.
Okay, I didn't know that. I feel like we've talked about this before though. But no, he's very stoic, and so he's not giving us a ton of acting. So I'm gonna bump him down for that.
Yeah, Bill
But I
Nye.
think he's still up there.
Yeah, I think his name is Bill Nye. I agree. I'll put him at A tier for now, and we'll see if we have to move anything around. Let's go to Azog, the Destroyer, the White Orc.
Okay.
He hits Uncanny Valley constantly, and when he acts next to someone who's in full prosthetics, it loses me so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He was well done, but the fact that you had most of your orcs in prosthetic and then the main orc not be a prosthetic when they did prosthetics for the Lord of the Rings. I don't know why they had to do full animation for this character, you know?
Yeah.
Because they did both, it goes way
It just
down.
loses it. And he was a character, but he wasn't. They made it this character. They gave him a lot of say that in the movies because there was not like a through bad guy.
Right.
So they've kind of gave him as the tentative like bad guy character in the movie where
Right.
he was in the books just very slight. He was only mentioned.
Now, are you feeling D tier or C tier for Azog?
Let's put him C because
they did a lot of work.
There's one on this list. Actually, there's two on this list that I'm going to say are lower than C, and you're not going to probably like it.
All right, so you pick the next one then.
So let's do Smog. Smog is good. I am very pleased with Benedict
For a dragon,
Cumberbatch.
Yeah, the performance is
and
great.
Benedict Cumberbatch did a fantastic job. I'm always pleased with Benedict. Benedict is always, I like him as an actor. I like it as an egg. I mean, Benedict is a great all around.
And also because it's not a human face, it is not hitting the uncanny valley. So it has like the Davy Jones effect, you know?
Yeah.
So it's believable.
I'd put him up in S tier. I'm putting him right behind
Davy Jones.
Yeah, I'm putting him right behind.
Well, hold on. In some capacity, is the animation so impressive? The performance is the character itself is very impressive. I'll put him in S tier along with that. I'll agree with you. I
think Davy Jones, and it's crazy that I'm arguing for this and not you. I think Davy Jones is a little bit better than Smog.
Yeah, I agree. No, Davy Jones is amazing. Performance, animation, all the way through.
Yeah.
So, pick another one since I already picked two.
Koba.
Let's go. I love Koba. As far as monkeys go, you can't make them look more realistic on camera with being completely animated. You know what I mean? You have all that hair to deal with, all the textures, subsurface scattering. They'll stand next to a human and you feel like a monkey's right there.
I would put him over Davy Jones. Would you?
The only reason I would do that is because the animation is so much more complex.
Oh, it is.
Davy Jones.
And I think certain characters, if I was going to rank them as characters, like certain ones have better motivation than others. I would say Smog has good motivation, but his motivation is not that high.
This is let's make a rule. We can't have
Okay.
more than two people on the same tier. So we're gonna have to move Smog down to A tier. Okay.
Okay.
Because I want to actually, I don't want to just be like, that looks fantastic. Let's just fill up S tier. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that gets dropped down. All right. Let's do Ultron. Ultron's interesting because
Mhm.
it's the same thing where they with Davy Jones, how they did the simpler things to make
Yeah.
it look better. You know what I mean? Ultron is fully made of metal, which is the easiest thing to animate and make it look real.
It looks
Um,
pretty good though.
that's why Iron Man looks really realistic and all of these, because when you're dealing with a metal animated character, metal is the easiest thing to animate and make it look good. And so
Um,
Ultron, they utilized the fact that Ultron's full of metal and it became across as very realistic in the same way that Davy Jones did, because they were able to do something that's not human but still have personality, you know?
I would put him basically right where Thanos is. I don't care if he's before
I
Thanos, behind
I think
Thanos,
he's
in my opinion.
better than Thanos in my opinion.
Okay. I think I would put him right where Thanos is though.
And
He's like
obviously again, we can
just as
take
good to me.
we're taking into consideration personality and character, and I think Thanos has more of that, but we're also more importantly saying how believable is the animation for these villains. And I think Ultron beats Thanos personally. Because Ultron, they did a smart thing. They made him not look human and made him metal, and so that comes across as more realistic on screen, you know?
Yeah.
Let's do Venom.
Okay.
So Venom,
Animation is fantastic.
I think it looks exactly what any of the creators of Spider-Man wanted the symbiote to look like.
Yeah.
I think they did a good job. So the question is, if we're saying, is it better than Thanos? Is it better than Ultron? Or where are we putting Venom at?
I'm gonna put him above Ultron, but his story, this movie is it gets a lot of hate, and I never saw the second one, but the first one was kind of meh. There was not much to it. So as a story, I didn't care for the movie, but him as a character is really good, and him as the animation is really good.
Okay, I'm not mad at that. And it also shows a little bit of skill by saying that you know, we're taking
we might
a
get a little bit of
complex.
hate for that because I think his character in that movie is not well loved and nobody really cared for
Wyatt
it.
would probably disagree if he was here. But he's
You know
not
what I'm
here
saying?
today.
I'm acknowledging that I know why it would, and I know why the reason is.
Okay.
But you have to say his animation is good.
It is good, and it's reflective, and it has a lot of moving parts, and I think Venom's done pretty well. And I think the complexity of the animation is better than Ultron and Thanos. Yeah, I think so. And successfully done better than those. So I personally think Snoke is at the bottom of the list, because Snoke not only was not done very well, like on camera, he was not convincing me that this is but also he doesn't do anything. So different than Azog. Azog is, through the story, he's moving, he's dynamic. They have to work with a lot and put him in a ton. Snoke was like just a small portion of the film, and it wasn't done well, and he just kind of sat there. You know what I mean?
As much as I love Andy Serkis, and I respect anything Andy will do.
Listen, we got Koba up here at the top.
Yeah.
And he was a part of the team that was doing motion capture for Dawn of the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, he didn't do Koba.
If Gollum was actually considered a villain, he'd be ranked really high too, you know? I don't consider Gollum a villain. Gollum is a
we should rank all of Andy Serkis's motion capture
maybe on a different podcast. And Andy Serkis was he wasn't in the film, but uh he was involved with the directing for Venom.
Yeah.
And the last one is Courage. Now, Avatar's known for its animation,
The
and
animation is good.
I will say that I think if you're doing a photorealistic humanoid based face, which the Avatar people are, they have eyebrows, they have eyes, they have mouths, same expressions as a person, that their nose is shaped similarly. I think this is the most successful animation to that escapes the uncanny valley. You know what I mean? Or it
Yes, but as a
almost
character,
escapes
he's
it.
got like no motivation. He's a dumb character, in my
Okay,
opinion.
but that those are side steps if we can't decide on animation.
Yes.
I think animation is so good here that it beats I don't think it beats Koba. I don't think it beats Davy Jones as far as the interestingness of Davy Jones of
I would put
character
him.
and animation.
Okay.
But I
Yeah.
think it beats everything else because just the fact that this film is
I would
full
agree,
of
but
faces.
I would have to agree with this. For some reason, we're agreeing on a lot right today, and there's not a lot of argument. The only argument I have is this is a dumb character, and he's a dumb bad guy for the second movie, and I just hated that movie for some reason.
Okay.
But I can't deny his animation. I can't deny that. So,
All right.
yes, he does have to be ranked higher for his animation. I'll give him the animation.
Does he deserve his own tier? I think he deserves his own tier. Personally.
Okay. I mean, as a ranking, I would agree with this ranking. I don't know if tiers are.
I think he's on another level.
Tier.
I think, okay, this is why I say actually putting him on tiers is because I think the animation is at another level than something like Smog and Venom. You know what I mean?
I mean, I would say he's, yes, I would agree with this ranking totally.
It's on another level. On
his
a new
own level, sure. I wouldn't say Smog was on a B tier. If you just said Smog, where would he fit in this?
But when
this
we're
tier list,
going through this
yes.
group, though, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, as far as and it's interesting that we actually paired up Ultron and Thanos on a similar tier, and they're both in the Avengers franchise.
Yeah.
But we separated Smog and Azog, which I do think that comes down to the simple fact that Smog is not a humanoid looking character, where Azog is, and that's all uncanny valley stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I agree hardcore with this. I think as far as when
of course,
you look
you created
at it,
this list.
No, I did not. You did. I think when you look at this, the most photorealistic, believable anything is Koba and Davy Jones. And then just complex animation that gets past the uncanny valley. Courage from Avatar is right there. You feel like you're looking at something with a real face, you know? And then Smog and Venom on B tier, Thanos and Ultron on C tier. D tier is Azog from The Hobbit, and then E tier is the worst, which is Snoke from the Star Wars sequels.
Yeah.
I'm happy with this.
I'm pretty happy. I'm like, at least for our rankings, I'm not walking away saying like I need to quit this podcast because we've done that before.
I think this is pretty good.
What do you guys think of this tier list?
Yeah,
comment down below. How would you do it differently?
How would you do it differently? I'm curious because I don't think too many people can disagree with this. And if Wyatt was here, I think we'd be pretty similarly the same.
I mean, I'd be running into his studio and just like
he has homework. I'm gonna ask him next week if he actually agrees with this, and so that means he's gonna have to watch it. He's gonna have to watch it to see if he actually agrees with this because I think that's important.